Hey, Lee Wolf here. We are live with Game Face Monday, and I hope everyone is staying warm out there. I know up in the Northeast we're pretty cold, but not as cold as where our guest today is. We've got Mr. Ian Nethercott, who is the host of the Auto Hub Show. It's, I believe, now in its fifth season with over 30,000 followers, which is pretty cool stuff. How you doing, Ian?
I'm doing fantastic. It's a little cold here, but it's warmer today. So if you're familiar with the Celsius system, we're at -9 today, Celsius. Yesterday was at -17, which is like reasonable for the weather here at this time of the year, but it can get colder. But I've lived in the Northeast. I actually went to school in Philadelphia, and I've also lived in New York City and also in Baltimore, Maryland. So I'm pretty familiar with the weather there as well. So yeah, I'm very familiar, but it's winter time, so it's time for a vacation, I guess. Going to New Orleans later this month, so that should be fun.
Yeah, maybe Colorado.
Yeah.
But and as always, Mr. Richie Bello, how you doing?
Good. How are you, Lee?
Good. Hanging in there, staying warm, and just happy we're only getting a dusting today. So before we get rolling on the show, just going to run a quick video from our sponsor, Shop Smart Autos, on the VIN Retention Report. Digital marketers, are you ready to give your clients an edge in the competitive auto market? Well, you can with the VIN Retention Report from Shop Smart Autos. This powerful tool doesn't just track the vehicles that dealerships sold or held onto, it shows where cars went, whether other dealerships, auctions, or private sales. And it does it fast because it does it with VINs. With this data, marketing agencies can create tailored campaigns that directly address these weaknesses. It's one thing to win new customers with great creative or lower prices per click, but it's a totally new ballgame when you can target each click and new customer with powerful data. As affordable as a radio spot, but far more effective. Help your clients win with the VIN Retention Report from Shop Smart Autos. All right, so we're going to dig a little deeper into that in a little bit. And so, Ian, tell us a little bit about the Auto Hub show. How'd you dream it up? Why'd you dream it up? And what kind of things do you guys talk about?
Well, we talk about everything to do with cars. The show was created by two friends of mine back in the early days of the pandemic. And then they quickly realized it was a lot of work. So I ended up taking over the show. We touch a lot in the technology side of the business and customer experience. And we're launching a new fixed ops show later this year. Probably I'll know some more details on that shortly. But we also do a new one-on-one show, which was started last year. So it's in season 2 now. The Auto Hub show is now in season 6. And we did an interview with your sponsor here, Richie, that should go up hopefully later this week. So if you are interested in more details, that show should be live shortly. I'm just waiting for the thumbs up because that's a recorded show. The difference with the Auto Hub show is it is a live show and it is a weekly live show. So there's very few shows that happen every single week. We have over 400 episodes and pick the topic. So whether you're a car enthusiast, whether you're someone in the industry, whether you're a technology company, whether you're a dealer, whether you're an OEM, we've even had OEMs on, shockingly, on a live show, which is kind of funny. Yeah. And then if you're interested in someone who maybe can't be on a live show, we've done interviews with luminaries in the industry called Richie Bello, for example, but also Brian Benstock and others you've known. And I'm even broadening out to other people outside of the auto industry who maybe can add some value. It's really about making the industry better one show at a time, which is actually our tagline. And we do live shows. So we'll be at NADA at the Velo booth, 8:35. So if you want to do an interview there, we're going to be doing our ambush interviews live at the show.
Awesome. And the next, you have a big thing coming up on the 13th, is it?
Yeah, we actually have a show on retention that's coming up next week. The show today was a free-for-all show, which is already live. We'll be live on audio eventually, probably later this week. But we had a bunch of guests talking about Amazon getting into the car business and also on data and other things. But next week is going to be about the attracting and retaining both staff and customers. So it's really about, how can a dealer get better at the things that they should be good at already, which is attracting and retaining staff and training them, but also, to your point earlier in the video, how do you keep your customers that you already have, but you might lose because you're not paying attention, right? Sleep at the wheel.
Right? Yeah. So that's that's where we're kind of heading today again, Richie, right? It's all about retention. And so the VIN retention report from Shop Smart Autos, yeah, it shows people the VINs that they held on to, the VINs that they lost, but it's also able to show them where those VINs ended up. So if a vehicle is sold at auction, if a vehicle is sold on the street, if a vehicle is traded in at a dealership down the road, dealers can start to see what kind of loyalty their customers have for them. And then they're able to clean up their marketing situation, their DMS, being able to retarget people correctly, because why are you pounding away calling people 15 times a week trying to sell them a car when they just bought one a few days ago down the road? So what, Ian, from where you're standing, the retention situation, do you find that a lot of times what we talk about a lot is that the dealers are always, and businesses in general, they're always worried about the next customer, the next sale that they're going to make? But what's your take on what's happening out there in the world of retention?
Well, it's interesting. So I've done shows on recalls, I've done shows on retention, I've done shows on marketing, AI technology, a bunch of other things, various areas. But when I worked for Nissan back in a former life, I always used to laugh at dealers when they'd say, "Oh yeah, it cost me $500 to get a lead, or $500 to acquire a customer, $500 for a walk-in." And I said, "Well, I'm privy to data from the manufacturer about what they spend on advertising, plus what you guys spend. And that number is not accurate, but not only that, it's extremely low. But more importantly, if you spent 50% of your time focusing on your customers you have, not only would you generate more sales from those customers than people they know, you would retain people in service." And I always think about years ago, I was working with a General Motors store, and I was working with General Motors Canada at the time. And they had all these campaigns around service. And they said, "Okay, we want to retain 40% of the customers we sold the car to in service." So I said, "Okay, that's the goal." And they said, "Yeah." I said, "So the person that got a free oil change with their car never came back. 60% of them never came back if we hit your metric." They said, "Yeah." I said, "Why?" And they said, "What do you mean by that?" I said, "Well, if someone's offering you something for free, you really need to bring them back for that free thing. And if they're not coming back, you got to ask questions." So we show a while ago about recalls, and this was a scary statistic for me. So what brand do you think has the highest percentage of recalls completed? You want to guess?
You got me.
Stellantis. So Jeep brand dealers have about a 70% free service for a recall on their vehicle. That actually is the number. Now, all the other brands are at what number do you want to guess?
Oh, geez. I wouldn't even know, but I remember seeing all the lines out the door at the Jeep centers, and they would always say it's the recalls.
Well, yeah, but I think the other brand's average was about 39%. So if I'm driving a Mercedes-Benz, and they don't call it recall, they call it product update at Mercedes-Benz because they're special people, I guess. At the end of the day, 70% of those customers are not fixing a potential catastrophic error with their car that might kill them. So if you're a dealer that isn't one of these other brands, pick your brand, and you're not calling every single one of those customers to bring them in to fix the possible problem with their car. I don't know what to say. And the thing that was funny, because I happen to own a Jeep product right now, and my app on my phone told me there's a recall. So I went to the dealer because I had to go do something anyway. And I said, "Do you have the parts?" They said, "No, we don't have the parts for that recall." I said, "Okay, the app's telling me it's broken.
Right.
But I physically come here and you don't have the parts in stock to fix it."
Right.
They're like, "What?" I'm like, "Well, you guys have a high number, but you should be at 100%. Like, that should be the goal. Fix every car."
Yeah.
Like, the customer ain't paying. And you better believe when they come in, they might say, "Well, maybe I want a service done on my car. Maybe I want to switch out the car. Maybe I don't like it." But that to me is a huge number, because if I have a dealer in my market that maybe I didn't buy it from, to your retention point, then I call that dealer and they fix the recall, what's the chance I'm going to buy my next car from them?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, Richie,
Probably pretty high.
Yeah, imagine that.
Yeah.
You have such a high percentage of people coming in and taking care of their vehicles, but they don't even have the parts when you get there to
I mean, why aren't you calling every single customer that you can if you have a VIN number, you can probably look up some information. Why aren't you calling them saying, hey, this car could blow up? We don't want that to happen to you, but we have a repair for that.
Right. Right.
When you come in, it's free.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. What's your take on all this, Rich?
I think it's really interesting how things have changed, and as far as retention is concerned. I mean, I was running some reports yesterday, and I saw this big automotive group that he retains good numbers when it's within his brand, but when you run the individual stores without the sister stores, boy, it's a whole different number. Yikes!
It was practically a zero, you said, right?
Yeah, and we can run that report with sister stores, without sister stores, with whatever, and it's amazing how it's a whole different perspective. If I'm a dealer, I would be very concerned about it. I would definitely come up with a process, but it's not really, I don't really blame the dealership at all. It's the third-party lead generation companies that sell the leads to the dealer. And when you start looking at the data, and you start looking at, because I have ShopSmart, so I know what they do, because I do the same thing, right? That customer that gets a lead from, then they prove it with the registration data. Now they know that customer bought a car at that dealership. So now they keep targeting that customer, which is Cars.com, Cars Guru, and all that. So the next time that customer's in the market, where's he going to go? He's going to go to that where they found that car. But not only that, he's going to go to that person that stayed in touch with them. So, and that being said is where that DMS marketing comes in a big way, because these lead gen have been following up these customers like that. If you just fill out an application for any of them, they're following you up all day long. Just the Cars.com people and the Cars Guru people, they have a funnel, right? So they are following you up. And man, that's where dealers are losing out, that they don't even know what's going on. And that's what's going on. That's one of the things that are going on, that this is why their retention is so low. So hopefully with these DMS marketing companies, they can come in and they can start doing DMS marketing, which is much cheaper than going on Google AdWords and Facebook and all that. And with the report, we have the report, right? We could go back 10 years of history. We can give you all your information 10 years, and you can hire somebody and clean up your database, or you can do all that kind of stuff, And what's the most important thing when you're doing with email marketing, right, or SMS? The most important thing is clean data, because if you're hitting people that are not in the market, you're not going to convert. And identifying the customers that are in the market, how do you identify that? Real simple. If you got lease returns on there, that their expiration on their lease is 6 months before, you start marketing them. Loan expiration, you do the same thing. The other thing is to look at this report and take a deep dive, Mr. Dealer, right? And look at how many of those VINs that you lost are customers that come in and service the car with you. Now you can put a number on that value and find out, wow, I lost these customers that actually are spending money in my service department. So that's why my service department is a little light this last quarter, just think about that. And you can really analyze your store. And the good thing about analyzing stuff like that is for you to come up with a process and target and get more revenue in. Because if it's like I told you the other day, the daily operating control. If a desk manager has that, he knows what deal to take and what deal not to take, right? So you're looking at what your gross profit is. Well, the same thing with this report. You can take that and figure out a solution, just like a desk manager would. He can figure out, okay, I'm getting low gross. I have to do something to get the gross up now.
Right.
So now I gotta minimize, take less deals but generate more growth. So you know where you're at. Knowing where you're at in any situation, whether it's your finances, whether it's your company, whether it's retaining your customers, is figuring out the solution, because the solution is always greater than the problem that you have.
100%. I mean, when you look at the average deal revenue today versus a couple of years ago, when people were lining up for cars, and when you look at used cars specifically, and don't want to go back to recalls, but dealers can even make money on the cars they have in their lot that don't have the recalls done, because then they can say to the customer, listen, great news, you're buying this car. We already did the recall.
Correct.
It's done already, right? Versus, well, we're not sure.
Yeah, right.
Like, yeah, I mean, it's up to you. Like, when you buy it, go over to Audi and like they'll fix it. Like, we're not sure if it's even been looked at, to be honest.
Right.
So, it's about customer experience. And I was talking about today about the show with Amazon, because obviously people are scared about Amazon, but at the same time, if Amazon sets up the deal, then it's great. And then they show up and it's crappy. That wasn't an advantage. So if you're setting up that process on the phone or an email or text or video, whatever it might be, and then they come into the store and it's like Bob in the corner, having a smoke, that's not good. So
Right.
Part of it is talking to the right people, but part of it is training that process so that that customer gets that award-winning experience, whether it be in sales or service. And really, that's about investing in your team and investing in training, but more importantly, giving them something to say. And I'll use the example of myself again. I was going in for this recall. So the dealer knew that I was doing that. So they called me and said, hey, do you want to switch your car, when you're here for the recall? I said, yeah, if someone wants to make me a crazy offer, like, I'm going to listen. I'm a car person. But they weren't even prepared to do that. Like, it was just, It was like, what, the service department's making you guys look bad.
Right. Yeah.
Like, their experience is better than yours, and you sell cars for a living.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Maybe you need them to train your guy.
Yeah. Well, that's what Richie and I were just discussing last week. It's, let's say, you take ABC Motors, they use the VIN retention report, they see the VINs they lost. Now you clean up the DMS. Now you target those VINs that they lost through service.
Yeah.
You offer them free oil changes. You offer them, we'll take care of your recall. We have a car waiting for you, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. But are the salespeople trained and ready to get in there and form relationships and flip these people and get them back? And that's whether they bought a car 2 weeks ago or, I mean, and I've talked to Rich about this on the show before. My father was flipped 2 times at Lexus in the service department, getting an oil change and sometimes they take his car to get it cleaned.
Yeah.
2 times in a matter of 4 years, he had 3 cars.
Yeah.
There's no reason why this shouldn't happen.
Have you been to Beaverton Toyota in this big town of Beaverton, Oregon, right near Nike's headquarters?
No, I have family there though.
Yeah, so it's one of the largest Toyota stores in the region. They've got, I think, 80 service bays. They got a full-scale car wash. They've got their own system called Clear to Sell Cars, where they can sell you a car within about 20 minutes on a tablet. But the thing that's a real masterstroke for them is they've got an office, a physical office, when you're checking in your car. That's like, the whole purpose is to talk to people about switching it. That's their whole purpose.
Right.
They got a cafe that's like better than Starbucks inside the location. Plus, they've got a retail store to sell the Toyota gear, like the hat, the t-shirt, this, that. But the thing that was really interesting to me when I worked with them is they're so good at retaining service customers. They actually have service customers that have had their car since new, and some of these cars are from the late 80s that are still servicing it at the selling table. So what shocked me about it was, so I was doing some research in that market to other dealers, like Hyundai dealers and they're in the same town. I went to this Hyundai dealer and I said, okay, I'm looking at this Hyundai. I think it's a Palisade. I needed one for my job. I said, I need a lease. Do you have the car? What's the price? He goes, well, I don't handle the pricing. I just show you the car. I said, okay, all right. Do you have it? Yeah, I have one. Okay, can I talk to the guy that does the pricing? He goes, oh yeah, let me get my manager. So the manager comes over and pulls out the Foursquare. And I go, okay. So the guy selling me the car, he can't even talk about numbers at all. Wow. I can go over to Toyota. I can do that with the salesman at the desk. He doesn't talk to anybody. Wow. He can do the deal right there in 10 minutes. He'll even send it to you at home so you can configure it at home and come back and pick it up. But you're in the same town and you can't do this. But the funnier thing wasn't that. I'm sitting at this desk, and in that market, if you're not familiar, Subaru is like the number one brand for imports in that market. So there's a couple there with their mother, and she was looking at a Hyundai versus a Subaru. So the salesman decided to get in an argument with her about how much better Hyundai was than Subaru, but not understanding the Subaru product. So he's basically winging it in a Subaru town with the mother and the kids. And I'm like, that's the battle you picked? He goes, what do you mean? I go, dude, like Subaru is like, this is the number one brand in this market. Like there's more Subarus sold in Oregon than Chevrolets. Like it's crazy. You don't understand this product. You might want to learn it.
Yeah. Oh my God. Oh, the region. Now, Richie, Ian was talking about not only the retention of customers, but of your employees. Same thing, right?
What I got to say about that is if you don't retain your employees, you're never going to retain customers. So that's the first thing you got to worry about.
Right.
Years ago, like maybe when I came to Long Island, there was a dealership here that consistently always had a Newsday article looking for salespeople, right? And every month he used to have the managers meeting and just to brutalize his managers. Our retention's terrible. Our sales retention is bad. I have a service. He's a big group, out here. And he was like a nightmare, right? And he never fixes retention, back then. And he still has a problem with retention. He's constantly on an Indeed ad now. So now it's not Newsday. Now it's Indeed consistently. And that was part of his thing. He's an old school guy, and he's always changing pay plans and pay plans and pay plans. He hires you with a good pay plan. Oh, so that's it. And, it's a store that they've had so many salespeople in there, so many employees, The only thing he's able to retain is a little bit in service. And what does he retain? His service advisors.
Yep.
And then you got another company out here that he's the opposite. His retention is people retire from there. You start there when you're 25, you just retire.
Yeah.
And the service manager in that store that I'm talking to you about, it's a Mercedes store, has been there 30-something years. Service advisors, 25 and 30 years. They know everybody. Right. So everybody he's unbelievable what he generates in the service department. He started years ago, he had like 6-7 bays. Today he's got 14 bays.
Yep.
And it's unbelievable what he does. He doesn't even really care about the car sales. He could care less if he makes money or breaks even or whatever in that end of it, but his service department is, oh my God, the profits that he makes in that service department and that parts department is crazy.
Let me give you an example from this Beaverton store, because I was working for Dealer FX at the time, and we were training service writers, and I was training this tech. So a customer there's bought their son an older Toyota pickup that was pre-fuel injection. And the service writer was so good. He not only sold a clutch, he sold a fuel injection service, or no, pre-fuel injection, a points, like a point service on this car. So I'm talking to technician. Oh, we don't have the machine to do that anymore. We sold it a couple of years ago. So he was trying to sort of figure out how he could do this service on the car.
Right.
And the thing that was funny about it was they have generational customers there who basically, they don't go anywhere. Like they continue to service a car that generally at a dealership, if it's out of warranty, they're going somewhere else. But here, the service is so good. They're like, yeah, I'm not going outside of this dealer. And the thing that's funny about retention, and it was funny because we've done a number of shows about HR, unfortunately not well listened to because it's HR, was the average sales retention number. It's something like a 70% attrition for car sales if you're male. And if you're female, it's 90% leave. But in service, every dealer's crying for technicians because they can't find any. Service writers, same thing. The reason is if I got a technician, they're at my store and they love me as an employer, I'm not going anywhere. Like, why? So, that's the challenge, but also the opportunity, because when I worked at a dealership, and it was many years ago now, one of the technicians who'd been there for years I got most of my referrals from him. Why? Because he trusted me and I talked to him every day. The biggest misstep for a salesman at a car dealership is not building a relationship with service writers and technicians, because service writers, they'll give you somebody because they don't want to give the customer the bad news. Like,
Right.
this bill is 10 grand. You should just get a new car.
Right. Right.
Why don't you talk to Ian about that, by the way? And then I'm just cut him a check, whatever. But that the service opportunity, if you run a great service department, is monumental. My family's been in the business over 100 years. A well-run dealership, the service department should pay for the overhead. If you're not running a great service department, you're going to lose money on the overhead. Like, it just doesn't make sense.
Right.
Like, that's where that absorption comes in. NADA is very big. The academy is very big on getting you and teaching you your absorption, how to do it. I know one guy that's really good at it, which his name's Michael Stoll. He works for CDK Global for years. Right. He also worked for ADP before he got bought over by CDK Global. So he's one of the best guys that I know on the absorption, and one of the best guys that I know on fix ops. He was an ex-dealer years ago. The same like you, family out from Michigan, you know. And let me tell you something. Today, there ain't no such thing as absorption. Today is like crazy, you know. I mean, when I was like a manager, and the first thing I watched was absorption. I wanted to find out, and that's managing your expense the right way.
Yep.
You know, today nobody cares about like the customer pay labor. I hear that a lot, but nobody looks at the effective customer pay labor.
Well, I'll give you an example. I was working with a dealer in Los Angeles. This is really funny. They were a Stellantis dealer in Los Angeles. Okay. And the dealer was complaining that the service writers couldn't sell tires in Los Angeles, downtown. So they had one of those old school tire racks with the tires that are screwed to the rack. Okay. They had like, whatever, 4 tires. So I said to the service writer, I said, do you have any inventory of tires? He says, no, we have to order it. It takes 45 minutes. I said, so you're in Los Angeles, you have no tires. So I asked him, I said, these ones on this rack, the 4 tires, do you have a full set or you just have the 1 tire? He goes, I don't know. I said, oh, okay. So I went over to parts. I said, okay, so these 4 tires, are these the only tires you have in stock? He goes, what do you mean? I go, well, did you buy 1 or did you buy a set?
Right.
Do you have like 3 or do you have the 1? He goes, I don't know. I said, well, maybe you might want to look it up. So he looks it up. They only had the 4 tires in their entire tire inventory in downtown Los Angeles. So then he says to me, yeah, we can get tires. I said, okay, great. So how long does that take? 45 minutes. I said, who is going to wait 45 minutes in Los Angeles to get a set of tires? So fast forward, I was there for a couple of days. I had a meeting, large deal group in LA. I think 25 rooftops, big urban market. I had a meeting with the fixed op director for the group. He says, what tires should I start with? Like, what tires should I get? I said, the ones that came with the cars you sell. He says, how do I do that? I said, well, you call a tire distributor and they'll land the inventory. Like, how much did you want? He goes, oh, how do I do that? I'm like, well, there's a couple of tire distributors. You can call them up. They'll deliver the tires. Like, not a problem.
Wow.
Like, you can have inventory today. And the thing that made me laugh about that was, in some cases, it's no inventory, but in some cases, just badly managed inventory. But how can you expect a service writer to sell tires, which, by the way, is the most important thing they should sell to any customer because it retains them at a high level?
Right.
They don't have the tires.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah,
like
they can't just
Costco
pull them
saying,
right
yeah,
off
I
the
don't
rack.
have any. I got no tires. Sorry. You can come back though, right?
Yeah. I can't say that didn't happen to me a few times at Walmart, because I'll go to Walmart to, you know, grab an oil change or a tire rotation, and a couple of times I've needed tires, and their auto tire center will not have the tires in stock, and it's unbelievable.
Well, I used to train BDCs years ago, and one of the first trainings I would do is I'd call up third-party service departments because the BDC agents are like, oh, the dealer's too expensive. Like, the third parties are less. So I said, okay, let's call Walmart. Let's call Jiffy Lube. Let's call Minute Lube. Let's ask them. And the funniest one was the Walmart call. So I called them. I said, okay, I got a Chevy Cruze 2007 do you have the oil? Oh, no, we don't stock it in the service department, but we have it in the store. I said, okay, so what's the cost? Well, if you bought the oil, then you'd come back and then we do this. And I said, so you can't give me a straight answer to the service cost? Like, do you rent your bay? Like, can I come in and service it myself? But the funnier one was Jiffy Lube. So they're like, well, we don't have that oil, but we can make it. I said, so in the Jiffy Lube, you have an oil refinery? He goes, what do you mean? I go, so you're mixing oil in the back? Like, what are you doing? Like, I'm not kidding. I recorded it. I was like, wow.
Wow.
I believe it. I believe it.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I'm going to take a 2-minute break just to show a quick inside look of the data that you received with the VIN retention report. So here you can see an example of your VIN retention report. Right at the top, you're going to see the total VINs you sold over a period of time. You're going to see the sales that you retained. You're going to see the VINs that ended up going on the market elsewhere. You could see it broken out by month. And it's really going to give you a good picture of how your retention situation is going. As you move on, these are your past VINs sold relisted in the last year. So whether they were on your website or a competitor's website, you're going to get to see. These are the VINs that were sold by your dealership by month. So you can see when your peaks and your valleys. Now you move on and you can see these are the VINs that you lost and what dealerships they went to, which is a huge, huge advantage. Which vehicles went to auctions that were your VINs. You see, this isn't just about knowing how many vehicles you sold. This is for sale by owner. These are your VINs. These are the models that you lost. So now you can see which vehicles, why are we losing so many souls and so many Sportages as compared to other vehicles? And then you have the positive side. These are the ones that you retained. So in the end, you're not just marketing to people in your CRM that may have gone somewhere else already, and now you can see where they've gone and you can target them to get them back. All right. So that's just a little deeper dive into the data that you receive with the VIN retention report from Shop Smart Autos. So, Richie, you're going to be jumping on Ian's podcast here?
Yeah, I think so. So the other thing I wanted to talk, since you just showed that report,
yeah,
the used car situation with that report is the game changer. Okay, that's another thing that helps a dealer because it is a comparison report. So if I'm a dealership, right, and I'm seeing that my used cars, I'm averaging 200 days or 100 days, let's say. I says, wait a minute, let me check something out. Let me check my market. What I call it, what's hot and what's not, right? So then I look at the car that they're selling, right, in that marketplace, and now I know, wow, okay. So now let me come up with a strategy and know which cars are worth what. Because here's what happens. They go on Vauto and a Honda Accord EXL, they just put a number on it based on what the conditions in wholesale is. What about the conditions in retail? Now, my neighbors, my other dealerships have 3 Accords. I don't, because I'm not putting the right number on it. But in the last 3 months, they flipped them 3 times. Whoa, take it easy now. Now, what do? I got to come up with my strategy. And with this report, that's what the report does. It tells you where the cars are going. Right. So now it's telling me what's going on in the market, and knowing as a dealer what is going on in my market currently is key. Now, what happened last year? The OEM sends you the, RDR on an email all the time. It used to be in a fax. Now it's in an email. They send you that email, and now they're comparing you to your other stores, right, in the district, comparison of last year. Okay, what does that mean? Market conditions change within 60 to 90 days.
Yeah.
Okay, so what does that mean? But I have a tool now that I can actually look at all my competitors and see what they're currently doing now, see what inventory they're carrying, seeing all this information and who's trading what where.
Right.
You know, here in Long Island dealers, just to let you know, if you want to see a report that's really a game changer, call me. When you look at CarMax here, game changer. I mean, the stores out here must be losing a lot of business based on those reports, and it's terrible what's going on. And that's a major player here. He wasn't here a year and a half ago. Last year, he wasn't here. So now it's a game changer. I mean, you got to look at these numbers. You know, you got to look at the competitors. I was on the phone with somebody not too long ago. Well, I don't really care what my competitors do, really. Well, then you're not in the car business. You know Then you're not in business, period. Because if you're not really paying attention to what your competitors do, then you're in a coma. Because believe it or not, in the business world, you're at war every single day.
Oh, 100%.
Okay. Yeah. And if you don't have the right soldiers, and if you don't have the right machine gun, you're going to get taken out. Okay. Because when somebody else knows the market and you don't, and you're not educating your used car managers and used car directors on what to buy and how to buy it and step up on these certain models. Like imagine you have the report, you send an email to your used car directors and tell them, I want you to step up on these 3 or 4 models. I want to take industries. Nobody's watching that.
Yeah.
That has to do with management. That has to do with inventory management. That has to do with, I wonder in a dealership, how many people actually walk the lot? How many people actually touch and feel with their hands, right, what's hot and what's not? I'm wondering who does that. I'm wondering what manager gets up from his desk and does the walk every day. It was like I worked in a lot of dealerships, right? It used to be that part of a management thing was in a dealership I worked in a group. Part of your job was to know your inventory right away. Salesman comes up to you, I got $3,000 at $180 a month. Bang, put him on this Hyundai right now.
Well, my used car director, when I sold retail, he used to walk the lot with us every day at the beginning of our shift. And he said, listen, if there's a problem with this car, I don't care what car it is that I got. You need to tell them what the problem is. We got to get that fixed today. Here are the cars you got to focus on. They've been here over this such and such a time. What do you think about the pricing on these cars? He was constantly getting feedback from the people talking to customers because he wanted to move product. Like it was for him, it was all about used cars. He didn't care about anything else. Like, why are you not selling these cars? What do I got to do? Like these things got to go away. But the thing that always stuck in my mind, having walked used cars, even when I was a manager, was if there's a problem with this car that nobody's driving, there's a reason we need to fix that. Because you always know there's that car in the back that like no one has turned over for like weeks. No one drives it because in the back. And why? Because no one's paying attention to it. Why is it out there? I don't know.
Right.
We're storing it, I guess.
Yeah.
At my younger years, right, I worked in Houston. So I had the opportunity to work with a gentleman. There was a Charlie Thomas organization. Okay. So he had a process there, which was MM. Every car that was past 60 days had an MM on it. And I used to say, what is this MM for? This is moneymaker.
Gotta go away.
Oh, it's got to go away. Okay, I got it
now.
This is called a moneymaker. Any car that has 60 days, gone. Okay. Because he had a very big second chance finance.
Yeah.
He needed the cars right. Okay. So then I says, moneymakers. Okay, so I was quiet. I was a director there, used car director, Charlie Thomas Chevrolet.
Yep.
And I says, okay. So then I looked at him and I saw they were losing $2,000, 1,500, three crazy losses.
Yeah.
So I said, why is it called a money maker? You mean that you're taking losers like crazy? He says, yeah, Richie. But if I would take it to the auction, I would lose $7,000. So here's the thing, Richie. I was 27, 26. And I was there on a work contract with a company, and I was there a year only. Okay. Yeah. He says, here's the thing, Richie. I can take that car and replace it. At the number that I sold it, I just sold it, losing $2,000, right? I can replace it at the same price, making $3,000.
Yep.
Okay, so then I said, oh, I see. Okay. So then he taught me that, and he says, it's the money, the profits are made in the buy, not the sale, Richie.
Oh, 100%.
Change your thought pattern, and that's where the money's made. So it used to be hobby auto auction. Even before the Manheim situation. Then Manheim took it over and whatever. But it was hobby auto auction. I used to go to hobby auto auction, and I was running a lane for them there, and that's where I really picked up a lot of knowledge in the car business. But this store, and you know of the Charlie Thomas organization,
yep.
This store retained their, because he sold it to AutoNation.
Oh, okay.
Okay, years ago. So he was, actually, when we left, that was the plan, to set up the store the right way so AutoNation would come in and buy. That was part of our deal, okay? So, and they bought it, okay? He had such a great metrics and such a great thing with retention. Why was it so good with retention and referrals? Because he was the only one in that whole area with 30-something stores that did second chance finance very strong.
Oh, yeah.
So guess what? That helped his retention more than anybody. Right across the street, we had a big company called McDavid. That was the we used to outsell him all the time, right? And it was, he focused on retention so much, and this was before reviews and before all this nonsense is out there. But actually, a store like him was worth a lot of money when he did the acquisition with AutoNation. It was a very big acquisition for the time. Okay, the reason was because the retention that this dealer had, Charlie Thomas, was unbelievable. The stuff that I learned from this guy, he's no longer on earth. So sorry to hear that. He passed away while COVID. But if not, he would be on my show. He was a great guy, really, really amazing. And he believed in retaining customers in service and in sales. And he believed in not wholesaling so many parts, because he told me, Richie, if you start wholesaling too much, that's going to cost you business. Right?
100%.
Right. So he
always that salesman goes, hey, do you still have that car? Oh, no, I went to auction. Oh, I got a buyer for that. Well, what did you have the buyer for last week? Like, right. I don't know if you saw the gentleman from Beaver Toyota, but I think they were the first Toyota store to sell 400 used cars in a month. And what was interesting, I saw an interview with him a while ago. He was on a show, I think. And he talked about going from 100 to 400. And to your point, if you don't have that process at 100, you're never getting to 400. Like, right. You've got to have that working like an old machine. And I agree with you 100%. If you're not process driven, if you're not reconditioning these cars quickly, if you're not getting them photo ready, if you're not moving that inventory every 30 days or less, you're going to have a problem. And I think there was a lot of dealers during the pandemic who had that problem because the value of used cars went like this.
Right.
Like, they were paying way too much for them. I mean, I sold a car that I had for what I paid for it 2 years before. Which made no sense to me. I'm like, I drove this thing for 2 years for nothing. Like, they paid the same money I bought it for.
Sounds
but
good.
Also, the other thing that I think has come up a lot when I've been on these used car shows is you got to look at a used car like an investment.
Right.
If you're not making XYZ amount of money on it, you need to sell it or get rid of it. It's not like something you hold on to. You're not in the museum business, I used to say to people when I sold used cars. So yeah, we want this to be in your driveway, not ours. We're not storing this for like a sunny day. Like,
right.
we want this to go away. And if you're after 30 days, you're not making money, you better get rid of that.
And I'm so glad you brought that up, because looking as an investor, that's totally right. Here, you're an investor. So let's talk about this. So you have $1 million and you're flipping that $1 million once a week, right? And your gross profit is not that high, but you're flipping that. Now you take me. I am holding that $1 million for 90 days. My gross profit is higher than yours. But at the end of the day, you know who's making more money? You are.
Yep.
Because you're flipping the money and you're taking less risk than I am. Why is that? Why are you taking less risk? Real simple. Because you're flipping it and flipping it. Your cars are not depreciating because let's face it, in the car business, what is a car? A commodity that depreciates. That's what it is. It's a commodity that depreciates. So that thing's got to go quick and fast. And based because I have the inventory and we got the feed in that, and I'm seeing these days, in market days, I mean, it's like crazy. You know what I mean? And and that's the problem, that you got to right away be creative from when that car comes in on trade, become a merchandiser. Everybody today is a marketer, but nobody realizes it, that merchandising is the biggest thing. Okay. And that's what car guys are, good merchandisers, not so much good marketers. That car comes in on trade today. When that car gets appraised and I know I'm taking in that deal, I'm already thinking of merchandising that car. And I'm already thinking when that car, the door gets open and there's a pending deal on it, I'm going to follow up that pending deal, because that's where you become old age units. When it sits in your finance office for 4 or 5 days and it becomes a mind deal to the salesman and to the F&I person that thinks he's got this high gross deal, right? And he's holding that inventory. That didn't work with my end when I did it. 24 hours in finance. If I don't have an answer in 24 hours, it was gone. I had something called a heat sheet with all the information. I used to sit down and do one-on-ones with the F&I guy, because that car is a commodity that depreciates.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and the longer that car's there, the less money I'm going to make, because I could replace that car in 30 days, probably about $1,400 cheaper.
Well, just think about a grocery store. If a grocery store said, listen, I love these tomatoes. They're organic. They're from fucking Bangladesh or wherever they're from. And I'm going to keep them because, the price is too high, but they're worth that money. Like,
I'm holding out. I'm
not putting them on special. I'm not merchandising them. They're in the back. I'm going to store them. I know they're going to go up in value. It's like, what were you smoking when you thought about that? Like it's funny. When you look at Costco, to pick a retailer, they figured out a long time ago that it's not about choice. It's about pricing and options, like 1 or 2 options. And I always use the example of this used car manager. So what he had is he had a painted area on the lot. He had a lot of used cars. Painted area, he had the certified used cars, and then he had what he called clearance zone. So he actually had a painted area of the lot where he parked these cars. These cars got to go away. Like, they're going away. Like, I don't care. They've been here too long. Then people realize, well, what's wrong with it? Well, what's wrong with it is the price is too low. You should buy it. Wait, he hit his head this morning. It's all in how you have that conversation. Yeah. If you're looking on a website, why don't you have that? Why isn't there a car special? Used car special area. There should be a service special area. Why don't you have, hey, these are unique used cars we got at low bottom prices? There's a guy who was a furniture guy in Toronto. What did he call? Nobody beats, I think it was Bad Boy Furniture. No one beats a bad boy deal or something like that. But like, hey, here's a market value for the car. Here's what we're selling it for. It's like that Car Guru's best price or whatever it is. But it's like, hey, this is the best price in town on this Honda Civic. You should buy it now. Like, it's not going to be here long, right?
Right.
We don't want it. We want you to own it. Right? We want to burn gas today. Like, when can you come down? We'll make that happen for you. And the used car manager has to drive that, but more importantly, he has to get the salesman jazzed up, because the salesman got to know why they should sell that car. Because when you're selling new and used cars, which I did, I would always lead into new because it was easier. But if I was going to sell a used car, it would be like, what's in it for me, dude? Like, yeah, it's cool. I don't care. what's in it for me? But more importantly, why is it good?
Right.
So what the used car manager would be very passionate about that used car and go, here's what's unique about this car. Here's why you should sell it. And by the way, I'm going to pay you X. But here's, you got to sell the used car guy who's really your frontline soldier on why they should sell that car.
Right.
Because they can sell something else. Right.
Well, the biggest thing is before we leave and kill this, the one thing I want everybody to think about is vehicles in operation. Okay, the tool that we have, right? And that tool will help you with vehicles in operations, right? Right now, Experian's last report was unbelievable. I'm going to look for it and post it.
Right.
3 months ago, they're telling me that I thought that was bad. This new quarter that's coming up, it's going to be really worse. Now, understand something. Let's look at the numbers first. We're penetrating a lot of EVs. So that's not in the report. Okay. So there's a percentage of that, but it shows you on one end of the report where those EVs are. What percentage of the market is penetrating? Okay. Because there's registration data. What's penetrating? Okay. But now, if you take that out of the equation, forget about those numbers, you're losing a lot. Vehicles in operations. Well, why is that? Why are we losing them like that? The vehicles of operations has been a real problem since a year and a half ago, 2 years ago. And that's something to be concerned. The other thing that's coming into the market, and that is directly communication. This has to do with communication. Lee mentioned about the tires at that store. Lee mentioned, Pep Boys is a big thing. All these other service shops is a big thing. Why are people going there? Because they have this perception of it's $250 an hour. I'm not going to be paying for $250 an hour. Well, okay. Well, that's good. You're not staying in touch with your customer. Hire a DMS marketing company that cleans that data, stays in touch with that customer, because now you're in touch with him. Okay, go to Pep Boys, Mr. Dealer, and tell him, do something with Pep Boys, right? Say you want to do your car repair there, right? Watch what happens every single time that they know. So if you have a car with 10,000 miles and they see the registration, that they know more or less how many miles you drive. Watch what happens. You get an SMS and an email in your inbox. That's what your competitor is doing.
Yep.
Why ain't you doing that? Well, it shows on your vehicles of operations. The results are showing right now on that. It's like that time of 2008 when all these dealers went at, they're just gone. You know why? Because a lot of people that had money or had financing opened up a dealership and thought they knew without no dealer academy and all that. And the OEM at one time, you had to have somebody with dealer academy, right? Yeah. Then they opened that up. And then anybody could have had a dealership. You imagine that?
Mm-hmm.
And you know how many stores went completely out of business? Why? Because they were managing it wrong and they weren't doing the right things. Right now, you got a real problem with your vehicles of operation, and that is a worse issue than sales could ever be. Right. Because that is a monthly income for you, Mr. Dealer. That's a problem. That's something that has to be addressed. Everybody knows my number. Everybody knows I'm out there. Everybody knows my email. I'm constantly out there. Call me. I'll be more than happy to help you. There are issues right now in the automotive sector, and it has to do with that. Listen, Amazon's coming in. Amazon's coming in as eBay Motors did, basically. They're selling cars through the dealership, not through them. Nothing to panic about. But let me tell you, keep losing those retentions like that, and Amazon will take over, because then the OEMs will say, wait a minute, we're losing all the vehicles in operation. Amazon is saying that they're going to open up all these stations for repair. No problem. Because when you look at Amazon's retention, it's great. And when you look at their stores, that are out, like
Yeah.
that Amazon Fresh store, the other one, all these stores,
Mhm.
Whole's Food, you look at their retention. When a customer goes there, they're always going back there. So you know what's going to happen if dealerships are losing all this before you wake up, Amazon will be in the car business and will be doing this. Pay attention to your retention, Mr. Dealer, but more important, pay attention to your vehicles in operation. You
Right.
gotta come up with a process to capture those customers back to you. Okay, something has to come together, because if not, the car business how we knew it ain't gonna be around.
Right.
100%.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
Amazon, it's all about customers. I'm not saying they know everything, but it's all about customers. But
Right.
the other tip that a dealer did that I thought was really brilliant, he took his own car to a third-party service department and he said, listen, I'll buy anything they present. The amount of money that they made selling him stuff versus his own dealership was shocking.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Because they presented it every time, not because it was necessarily good. His own team wasn't doing that.
Right.
Yeah, it's a good example.
So, Ian, every Monday, 11 a.m. is the Auto Hub show. Where do they find you?
Well, I'm everywhere that you normal suspects would find me. So I'm on Spotify, I'm on iTunes, I'm on Amazon Music, I'm on YouTube, I'm on LinkedIn. I've been on LinkedIn a long time. I'm on Twitter now as well, on X. I'm not on Facebook because it's unreliable, so I went with X instead. And then, of course, I am going to be at NADA at the Velo booth. So if you want to do live stuff, I'm going to be doing ambush interviews at the show. And on YouTube, probably the best cache of video content. But if you prefer audio, it's on those other platforms as well. And
Awesome.
definitely check out Richie's interview. Hopefully he'll give me the thumbs up today, and I'll have that out by later this week. And that was a really good interview we shot. I think it was on Saturday.
Saturday, yes.
Yeah. So if you want to know more about Richie, that'll be out. And if you want to sign up, you can go to autohubshow.com. You can sign up to our email list. We're at about 16,000-ish dealers on that list, North America wide, plus some international.
All right,
And
awesome.
boy, oh boy, just looking at here, there's a lot of snow.
Yeah, so much for a dusting.
Yeah, well, you can always go skiing.
That's not a dusting now. Wow.
Before we get rolling here, I just wanted to remind the audience that Richie's book, Let Data Take the Wheel, has hit Amazon. And I just wanted to read something really quick from it. All profits from this book will be donated to our U.S. military veterans who need hope in their lives. Suicide is a complex problem that disproportionately impacts the military community. Stop Soldier Suicide is the only national nonprofit focused solely on solving the issue of suicide among U.S. military veterans and service members. Every dollar over the cost of publishing will be dedicated to stopsoldiersuicide.org. Let's continue to give hope to our heroes. Catch it on Amazon, chock full of unbelievable information about the data world and the automotive industry, but also a great cause. And Ian Nethercott, thank you so much for being on the show today. It was great having you.
Thank you. Thanks for the invite.
Yeah, it was a great informative show. And Richie, as always, thank you for sitting by my side.
Thank you, buddy. Have a beautiful, beautiful day today.
Yep. Have a great week.
Oh.
All right. Thanks
The new month is rolling.
Thanks for listening and watching.